Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, the Philadelphia Phillies bats, at least the starters, look really, really good to start the spring. We'll talk about who's been improving what and why you should be encouraged by their start to spring training. Also, a huge win for Philadelphia Phillies fans everywhere. We have an announcement on everybody's favorite promotion. And in our opening day countdown, we're 29 days away from opening day, and a fan favorite is on the list here at number 29. We'll get into all of that as we go through another episode of Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm Connor Thomas, your host. Thank you so much for checking us out. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff. I really appreciate that. It helps us out here on Locked On Phillies immensely. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. The Phillies bats have started the season really, really strong, or rather spring training really, really strong. They still got a ways to go. Opening day is until March 28th. Plenty more baseball games down in Clearwater and the surrounding area in Florida to take care of before they come north. But I've told you this before, in case you've missed it in previous episodes, the pitching is always ahead of the hitting to start the season. It just always is, at least to start the spring, because pitchers can throw bullpens to a strike zone forever. Hitters seeing live in-game pitching only really happens in spring training. It's hard to replicate that over the course of the offseason. So for the Philadelphia Phillies to have the start they've had offensively, that's a really, really good sign. Whit Merrifield has been, let's start with him because he's kind of been at the top of the order a good amount. Kyle Schwarber today against the Braves batted in the leadoff spot. So that's interesting to see for everyone who doesn't want Kyle Schwarber to bat leadoff. It seems like Rob Thompson is still comfortable with that as a potential option. We'll see how that plays. But let's start with Whit Merrifield because he's the new addition this year. He's the guy that I think is going to be a really important asset for this team. He just looks like a hitter. Putting the bat on the ball is something Whit Merrifield does insanely well at an elite level. We knew this coming in just by his numbers, but seeing him in action, it's just a very compact, no-nonsense swing. He's not trying to do too much with the ball. He did hit a home run against the Red Sox the other day, but he's just really, he can hit for a little bit of power. He can hit for a lot of contact. He plays a solid defensive infield and outfield. Couldn't be happier with what I've seen from him so far. JT Realmuto has put a couple really nice swings on some baseballs, including a mashed home run against the Atlanta Braves in today's game. It's currently ongoing as I'm recording this, so I don't know what the final outcome is, but we got to the fifth or sixth inning, and I was like, they're probably going to pull the starter. So moving on from that, just saw a strong outing from Seranthony Dominguez too, not to get too off topic, but he looked solid. Maybe a bounce back year for him. But JT, they were talking about it on the TV broadcast, right? About his back knee and it being kind of in front of his back foot. You don't want to backload too much, right? I know you can't see my lower body if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're a podcast, you can't see me at all. But think about standing up on your right leg. You don't want to get outside of that back foot because that pushes your weight too far off balance back. It's a lot harder once your weight shifts past that back leg. Left leg if you're a lefty, right leg if you're a righty. It's much harder to create that weight transfer that leads to a solid balance swing and power on the follow through. That's just some basic level hitting, but it's hard to do and stay consistent with when you're seeing different types of pitches and everything like that. Seems like a simple thing, very hard to actually execute. And JT Realmuto has been doing a better job on the backside of loading properly, staying balanced. And the home run he hit today was he kind of just flicked his hands at it and got it out of there. We've seen him do that before. We know he has strong forearms, strong hands, but he looks to have fixed the issues with his swing from last year. That's what we heard, that he's made a fix that fixes a hole in the swing that the Phillies notified him of this offseason that they saw last year. That seems to be working. And Alec Bohm, on his first pitch of the spring that he saw today, he got a breaking ball from A.J. Smith-Shawver, who the Philadelphia Phillies have absolutely owned, by the way, for the Atlanta Braves. A young guy, young pitcher, but throws gas, solid breaking stuff, and the Philadelphia Phillies just keep hitting it out of the yard off him. JT went yard off him, and then Alec Bohm on the first pitch he saw got a absolute hanger that he just tanked deep to left field at Baycare Ballpark. Not over Frenchie's. It was more towards left center from that, but it was a moonshot from Alec Bohm. That's really good to see. He looks like he is much more comfortable with the power development that he's been trying to do over the past couple seasons. Last year, he put on weight. This year, there's not a lot of commentary about, oh, well, Alec Bohm has come back this much stronger or looks this different or whatever. But you get more comfortable with your body at that weight, and you get that swing path more comfortable to stay. Not like lifted, right? You want to have a level swing still through the ball. But as you're making that level swing, you could have a slight upward trajectory, a longer swing, not long as in a slow, but stays through the zone longer to create a better chance to catch that ball on a plane where it can take off and get out of the yard. Like, that's the nuance of power hitting. It's not just drop your back shoulder and try and mash the ball into the air like you're a slow pitch softball player. So I think Alec Bohm's swing path is continuing to develop to the point where he could display power again this year, even more power maybe. I'm not so sure on that, but that first swing looked really good. And he's looking like, here's the important thing for Alec Bohm. He's looking like a confident hitter. He's looking like a confident baseball player. That's going to be key for him this year and really for his whole career. And the last guy I want to highlight, I mean, Bryce Harper looks good, but Bryce Harper always looks good. One more thing about Bryce Harper after we talk about the hitters, but we know he's going to look good at the plate. He's one of the best hitters of this generation of baseball players, one of the greatest hitters of the baseball I've ever seen. But Johan Rojas is another guy I want to talk about. He had a rough day, went 0 for 3 in their last game, now against the Braves. He had an at-bat early on in this game where he got 2 strikes on him, and he went to that 2-strike approach where you don't even lift your front leg. You just balance, weight shift, and just try and put bat on ball. That's something that I think is more important than seeing Johan Rojas early in the count make things happen. How is his hand-eye? How is his discipline? How is he late into counts to just put the ball in play, right? The dude, he can't bat over. But if you're going to strike out 3 times a game as opposed to 3 productive outs that move runners up, that lead to RBIs, a sac fly, a ground ball that ends up leading to a run scored somehow, those are what you should look for from Johan Rojas. That's productive enough with how good the rest of this lineup is. He made a great play in center field, but also he had a ground ball to second base that was booted because of his speed. He makes it to first. An overthrow on a pickoff, he makes it to third. And the next thing you know, not only has he contributed to a run scoring before that, but a single to left field, and he's in for another run. He's a difference maker on the base paths, and he's a difference maker the second he puts the ball in play. And he seemed a lot more controlled in trying to do that circumstance, which is with 2 strikes on him. Then real quick defensively, too. I know we're talking about the Phillies bats and how good they've looked, but defensively, 2 guys that have popped to me. Of course, Rojas. He made an outstanding catch today where he just tracked down something. He was shaded to, if you're looking from home plate, he was shaded to the right side of second base, towards right center. And the ball was hit over in the left center. Kyle Schwarber was playing left, so, he's not going to get to it. And Rojas just tracked this thing down like he's jogging after it. It didn't even look like a difficult play for him. And it was a very difficult play. That's a lot of range to cover. That's amazing. Also, Bryce Harper at first base looked really good today defensively. Made a nice diving play in the hole, flip over to the starting pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies, a young guy, local guy too, that got the start. Big moment for him. But Bryce Harper makes the play there and goes into the hole. And then later on in the game, Bryce Harper got a ground ball to his glove side, fields it, steps on the bag, reaches or turns around and throws the second for the double play and creating an opportunity that way, which is just a smart heads-up play. It's tough to know, go for the bag, don't go for the throw first. you can get him on the tag play at second. And Bryce Harper just has those instincts. He also did have a play where he laid out in the hole for a ball that wasn't even close to him that left Nick Nelson having to go cover first base. Tyler Phillips, by the way, the starter for the Philadelphia Phillies today, a local area kid, grew up as a Phillies fan. Great moment for him. Nice little appearance. I mean, he had 2 earned runs, but he'll be happy with just getting out there and putting on the Phillies uniform. But Bryce Harper's looked really good defensively. Yohan Rojas has looked really good defensively. And the Phillies starters in general have looked really solid at the dish when it comes to the way they're swinging the bats early on in spring. So should you feel good about the Philadelphia Phillies offense so far? Damn right you should. And this is just further proof, right? People are worried about Rojas's offense, where Kyle Schwarber's going to bat in the lineup, Rob Thompson's lineup and his order and everything like that. Bottom line is this. The Philadelphia Phillies have a lot of freaking talent. They do. They have so much talent on this team and in this lineup that you could get away with not having the best player at every position. Like, they don't have to be an all-star team. They just have to be the team that they are. That's good enough, and they've looked really good to start spring training. So I feel great about where the team's at. And coming up, I feel great about this as well because people were asking this. The promotional schedule for the Philadelphia Phillies came out, and it was missing something. But we have an update that's super important for everybody out there that's a fan of the Philadelphia Phillies. We'll talk about it coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. First, I want to tell you about FanDuel. You can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. I'll give you a little bit of a tip here, okay? This is just my personal feeling, so I'm not guaranteeing you anything. And it's just what I would bet. But if I was going to bet $5 on something right now, there have been a lot of unders in the NBA that have been hitting recently. So I would take a peek at that and find a game where you think there's not going to be a lot of scoring. You bet $5, you win, $150 in bonus bets. And you can spend that on a whole bunch of stuff. Quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, money line, spread, over-under, futures bets. They got everything at FanDuel Sportsbook. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. So I got to give a shout out to the folks over at Crossing Broad. If you're not familiar with Crossing Broad, it's a website. It's a online like blog type of website. They have podcast features and stuff like that as well. They put out a bunch of articles on just kind of what's going on around Philadelphia sports and Philadelphia sports media and all kinds of stuff. Totally worth a follow. If you're not familiar with them, get familiar with them because they put out a lot of really interesting content and they do good work over there. And one of the guys over there, Kyle Pagan, reached out to, well, none other than Hatfield Hot Dogs. Why exactly is he reaching out to a hot dog company? Well, because the Philadelphia Phillies put out their promotional schedule. What games you can get, what bobblehead, and what's going on. When can you get a replica jersey? What nights or what special nights? And you got to figure that out so that you know, hey, I want tickets to this game. I want to go to that game. Oh, it's kids get this hat. Well, my kid would love that hat. So check out the promotional schedule. The Phillies do a great job with that. Shout out to my guy, John Brazier, who puts together he's the director of fun and games for the Philadelphia Phillies. So Brazier does a great job over there putting all that together. And one thing that was missing from the calendar this year was Hatfield Dollar Dog Nights. There were just none listed, none scheduled. So people started freaking out. You might have been freaking out that we're not going to get Dollar Dog Night. Are you kidding me? Like, what's the point of the Philadelphia Phillies even having a season if we're not going to have Hatfield Dollar Dog Night? You could win the World Series, but if there's no Dollar Dog Night, what was this all for? Obviously, I'm kidding there. I like the World Series. If you ask me to trade Dollar Dog Night for the World Series, I'm doing it in a heartbeat. But we can have both. We're allowed to have both. And Kyle Pagan of Crossing Broad reached out to Hatfield and was like, yo, no Dollar Dog Nights? And they said, we've got some scheduled. So it sounds like there are going to be $3 Dog Nights this year. The promotion that everybody loses their mind for is back. And two of them sound like they're going to be in April. So early on in the season, then there'll be another one later on, I suppose. Normally they get them out of the way pretty early. So you're going to want to pay attention and get your tickets to one of the earlier ones. The other thing I'll also say, it was a little bit of a tough time getting some dogs last year. There were some long lines. It's a very popular night at the ballpark. So at some point when we get closer to Dollar Dog Night, I'll give you my strategies for the best way to attack Dollar Dog Night. But yes, if you were worried about the Philadelphia Phillies not having those promotions that you love, the Dollar Dog Night promotions, then worry no more. We're absolutely going to have Dollar Dog Nights this year at Citizens Bank Park. Did I just say Citizens Bank Fart? Citizens Bank Park. My goodness. What an all-time slip-up that was. Okay. No, Citizens Bank Park. We'll have Dollar Dog Nights this year. So a lot of great stuff going on. There's some other really good promotions for the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, you're going to get a Phillies scarf on opening day if you go. There's some big-time bobblehead stuff that'll be happening as well. I'm trying to figure out what bobbleheads they have. I'm just scrolling through their promotional schedule right now. Ooh, a sleeveless hoodie for children 14 and under. That'll be against the Pirates on April 14th. You could just look up this whole schedule and everything. I'm just trying to see what some of the big ticket items are so I can find my way to a couple of. This one I want, right? So I have you remember the victory shirt from last year? If you're a fan of this podcast, you remember the victory shirt. I wore it every single day from like June 6th on that the Philadelphia Phillies had won a baseball game, and continue to wear that through the postseason. I don't think I'm doing it again this year. You can comment if you want me to bring back the victory shirt, but I think I'm going to try and do something different because that shirt got a little stinky and worn out. But I got that shirt on Father's Day because they had it as a promotion. Took my dad to the game. Me, my brother, my dad, we all got that shirt. It was cool. Well, this year on Mother's Day, women 15 and over are going to get a ladies bucket hat, and it's a pink Philadelphia Phillies hat with some bat decals and stuff on there, some bell decals. It's pretty sick. It's a pretty cool looking. I'll show you on the YouTube right now if you can see that. It's a pretty cool looking bucket hat with the Philadelphia Phillies logo. I might lie and say, hey, yeah, my mom would really love that hat, and then just take it for myself because that's a sick hat. But there's a lot of cool promotions and stuff like that. Most importantly, I'm happy to announce that Dollar Dog Night is going to be back for the Philadelphia Phillies in 2024. So if you've been out there freaking out, worrying you're not going to be able to get a hot dog for $1 or 8 hot dogs for $8, or if you want to try and beat me and my friend's record, 14 hot dogs for $14. The record is 13 and a half. Don't worry about that. You're going to have a chance. So that is all good to go. Coming up next on Locked On Phillies, we're going to continue our opening day countdown with number 29. The best number 29 to ever play for the Philadelphia Phillies is, okay, maybe I'm being a little bit biased with this. Maybe I'm not, because he was a really good player in his own right. But there's a number 29 that is still very important to the organization as a whole. I got to have him as the pick for this number on the list. We'll discuss who it is and why coming up as we wrap up Locked On Phillies. Let me tell you about GameTime, though, right? Okay, GameTime's super important if you want to find tickets last minute or anytime for games and get the best price and get the best convenience. It's super easy. GameTime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. You got all-in prices, so they show you your total up front. You know you're getting a great deal right from the jump. You can buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. And GameTime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the best place to find last-minute seats. It's not just for sports. Theater, movies, comedy, all that stuff, any type of shows, concerts, you could go with GameTime. Go ahead and check it out. They got special flash deals that pop up every once in a while, zone deals where you pick the section and GameTime picks the seats for big-time savings. And the GameTime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section in a row for less, GameTime's going to credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Opening day countdown number 29. Now, who could be the best number 29 in Philadelphia Phillies history? It's a really tough question. Or is it? Well, let's run through a couple of recent number 29s and notable players that wore the number 29 for the Philadelphia Phillies. Currently with the Phillies, or I guess last year with the Phillies, Rodolfo Castro is the most recent Philly to wear the number. My guy, Nick Maton, Wolfie, wore it in 2021 and 2022 before he was traded last offseason as part of the Gregory Soto deal with Detroit. Raul Ibanez wore it from 2009 to 2011. Great number 29. He's in the conversation. This is a name I remember this player from growing up. It's one of the first Phillies that I remember. Marlon Byrd wore this number from 2002 to 2005. He rocked the number 29. And this guy doesn't count. No, he does not count. He is not the pick. But Jimmy Rollins did wear the number 29 in the year 2000. Obviously, he switched numbers, and we may hear from him later on this list when we get down into the teens and close to tens. Yeah, I think we'll hear from Jimmy Rollins again as far as this list is concerned. And then there are some older ones. I mean, when you go way back, you had Gary Maddox wore it in 1975. Not Don Larson. Dan Larson wore it in 1979. Just going through some of these names, but those are Skeeter Newsom in 1946. I know we got a lot of Skeeter Newsom fans on the podcast. What a name that is. But the best 29 in Philadelphia Phillies history has to be the guy who wore it from 1991 to 1994. And that would be one John Kruk. And not just for what he did during that time, an important part of the 1993 team that stole the hearts of this city and went on an unbelievable run, like out of nowhere. But it's just not that. I mean, you hear John Kruk on the TV broadcast all the time alongside Tom McCarthy. He has become a staple of Philadelphia Phillies baseball, not just for my father's generation and the generation before me, but for my generation and the generation after me that have been watching him on TV and have been really used to his humor and wit, or maybe lack thereof. No, I mean, he's a smart guy, but sometimes he just kind of zones out during the TV broadcast. I love Krucker. He's a great dude. Had the pleasure to run into him a handful of times, and I can't say enough nice things about the guy, who he is as a man, who he was as a baseball player, and what he does for the Philadelphia Phillies organization still today. So the best number 29 in Philadelphia Phillies history, it's got to be John Kruk. It has to be. And you'll get to hear John Kruk and Tom McCarthy on the calls on TV broadcast this year as the Philadelphia Phillies look to go on another magical run. We're only 29 days away from seeing John Kruk back in the booth up here in Philadelphia. I cannot wait for that. And the Phillies taking on the Braves right now. So we got a little 29 days early taste of what opening day in some kind of way could look like for the Phillies taking on the Braves. Every day we draw closer, folks. And every day it's another episode of Locked On Phillies. So thank you so much for checking us out. Please make sure, again, you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And that's all for today's episode. So I will talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.